But change is possible by learning from the success of countries like United States, which practice decentralization federalism. Nigeria can chart a new course. Good day, viewers. At the dawn of October 1st, 1960, Nigeria stood tall as a newly independent nation, full of hope and promise. The Britain had just departed, and the reign of power were finally in the hands of Nigerians. But the system of government Nigeria would adopt in those early years and the change that followed have had a profound and a lasting impact on the nation, an impact that many would argue has not been fair to the millions of Nigerians still suffering in the streets today. Nigeria adopted a parliamentary system of government modeled closely after that of Britain. This system emphasized regional autonomy, with power being distributed among the regions: Northern, Western, Eastern, and the Mid-Western region. Each of these regions had its own government and could largely govern its own affairs, allowing for a degree of decentralization that respected Nigerians vast in their ethnic and cultural diversity. But this crack system could not contain the deep-seated division. In 1966, just 6 years after the independence, Nigeria experienced its first military coup, followed by a counter-coup, and then the devastating Nigerian Civil War, and also known as the Biafra War. This conflict from 1967 to 1970 tore the nation apart, and it resulted into the death of over 1 million people, many of them as civilians. Following the Civil War, Nigerian leaders, particularly the military regime that took control, believed that a strong and more centralized government was the solution to prevent further division and conflict. Though Nigeria shifted from a decentralized system to a centralized one, where the federal government holds most of the power, while the region or state, as it became known, were largely depending on Abuja for resources and decision making. Interestingly, Nigeria's centralized federal system was adopted with the idea to create a stronger and more unified nation. However, this stands in stark contrast to the model of the federalism practiced in the United States, a country Nigeria looked up to as a beacon of democracy. In the US, federalism is decentralized, with significant power reversed for individual states. This allows for a balance of power that respects regional diversity and gives local government the ability to address their specific needs efficiently. But in Nigeria, the centralization of power has led to a different outcome. Over the decade, the concentration of power in the federal government has contributed to the widespread of corruption, insufficiency, and a disconnect between the government and the people, where resources meant for development are often mismanaged or siphoned by the little small elite, leave majority of Nigerians to suffer in poverty. The centralization of power has also fostered bad leadership. With so much power and resources concentrated at the center, the stake of gaining control over the federal government has become incredibly high. This has led to tense political competition, often marked by violence, electoral fraud, and also lack of accountability. Meanwhile, the people are left with little influence over their own governance and are often subjected to a realm of leaders who do not represent their interests. Nigeria remains one of the poorest countries in the world. Infrastructure is crumbling, unemployment is high, and the basic services like healthcare and education are severely lacking. The people are frustrated, and this has led to the protests and call for change. The End SARS protest movement, for instance, it's not just all about the police brutality. It is a symptom of a much larger problem: the failure of centralized government to save its people. For instance, today, the consequences of this centralized system are clear. Nigeria, despite its wealth and natural resources, Nigeria remains one of the poorest countries in the world. Infrastructure is crumbling, unemployment is high, and the basic services like healthcare and education are severely lacking. The people are frustrated, and this has led to the protests and call for change. The End SARS protest movement, for instance, it's not just all about the police brutality. It is a symptom of a much larger problem: the failure of centralized government to save its people. So what's the solution? Many believe that Nigeria needs to return to more decentralized system of government, one that allows states and regions more control over their resources and affairs. This would empower local leaders to address the specific needs of their communities, reduce the power of the federal government, and importantly, help to curb corruption by spreading power more evenly. Centralization has not worked for Nigeria. It has led to poverty, bad leadership, and a disconnect between the government and the people. But change is possible by learning from the success of countries like United States, which practice decentralization federalism. Nigeria can chart a new course, one that respects its diversity, empower its region, and most importantly, serve the people. The time for change is now. Let's push for a system that is fair, that is just, and capable of leading Nigeria into a brighter future. I encourage every viewer to share this video. Join this conversation on decentralization and advocate for a systemic change in Nigeria. God bless you.